Whoa, hello. What's up? It's Joe. And we're doing this Castlevania thing. This Castlevania thing being, you know, the new Castlevania collection that just came out today. I actually would have done it earlier in the day, but it's alright. So yeah, I would have done it earlier in the day, but I thought the eShop updated at like 3 o'clock my time, 2 o'clock my time, and 2 o'clock my time. I'm still readjusting to Central Time after being on Eastern Time for 5 years. Anyways, and then I realized that this was one of the important games, because the arcade collection was not one of the important games that got like the immediate eShop update. This was, you had to wait till whatever time most of the third-party games go in, but this was one of the important games. So it's been available all day apparently, and I didn't realize until later in the afternoon, and by then I timed my dogs going out in such a way that... Anyways, that's not important. What's important is that it's 4 o'clock and we're playing some Castlevania games. So they did not say that M2 was handling this collection until it came out, basically. But this is an M2 production. Because the first one, the arcade collection, was a hamster joint, if you will. And so this is what we got here. So we've got Ken's in the chat, says, "What up, Joe?" Hi, Ken. We've got 8 Castlevania games, 3 on the NES, 2 on the Game Boy. Sorry, 4 on the NES, 2 on the Game Boy, 1 on the Genesis, 1 on the Super Nintendo. So, yeah, I'm just going to hang out and kind of go through them. I apologize for the slight kind of white noise that's you probably hear in the background, but it is hot AF, as the kids say, in Nashville today. It's in the 80s, verging on 90s. The air conditioning is on, and the compressor is... There's a door right there, and that's where like the machine room upstairs is, and where the central air unit is upstairs is behind a door that's right there. So, sorry if that's the thing that's bothering you. I apologize. Anyways, so yeah, we're at least gonna take a tour through some of the more noteworthy, you know, portions of kind of what we're doing here. And I stopped watching the Brewers in the 9th because they were up like 9-3, and apparently they ended up winning like 11-3. So, but I'm going to kind of go through the important notes here, at least one game per system, and just sort of see what's what on this collection. I like that we get like these full sort of text scroll stories on the left when we're picking a game. That's pretty dope. Ken says, "I am surprised Rondo is not in the collection. Obviously, Symphony is not in the collection because it's a Metroidvania game." I think that Rondo is not because it was part of that 2-game collection that Sony co-produced that came out on PS4 like last Halloween. And I think that's the reason why. Also, it seems like they might do another one of these. I don't know. I'm pretty happy with the game selection, except for this guy right here. Castlevania Adventure kind of sucks. And I guess it's like sort of historically important, but like it's not very good. I don't know. Anyways, we'll start with Castlevania. So, Onomatopoeification says, "Sort of off topic, but how is Nashville so far?" It's good. I like Nashville. So right away, we get some options here. We can frame. This is apparently a game-by-game thing, because I set this before I started playing and it didn't save, so I don't know. I wonder if this has the... Oh, it also changed the display settings, so... So this is weird. The way it displays here, it says original. I think original and pixel perfect are backwards, because I think pixel perfect is square pixels, but if you go on original, that's square pixels, and then if you go to pixel perfect, that's obviously 4:3, so... But then it's... the scan lines... If you turn the scan lines on, that's correct. So I don't know, this must just be mixed up, but I'm going to play it in 4:3. I like the box art frame. Some people don't like that. I like that. Here's the thing that bugs me, though. Controls. So it tells you what the controls are. Look at what the controls are. Y is jump, and B is attack. And it's that way for every game in this collection, and you cannot change it. So, fortunately, A is jump and X is attack. So instead of doing this, I'm going to do this. But, like... That's really silly to not, like, any... It's 2019. Give players an option to remap the buttons. That's all I'm saying. Anyways. We're going to play some Castlevania. Ken says, Joe, is there a rewind feature? This is a tough game. It's no Battletoads, but Castlevania is a tough series nonetheless. It does not appear that there is a rewind feature. Yeah, none of the buttons appear to... Nope, there is no rewind. I don't know, it depends on how time goes and stuff. I might hook up my NES and sort of show... show the difference versus real hardware. M2 is pretty fastidious, though. Although I feel like... Well, I guess you never really know, right? You never know with NES color palettes. Like, some of this stuff doesn't feel quite right to me, but NES color palettes are based on, like, analog wavelength values, not actual, like, digital, like, numerical values, I guess, as I understand it, so it really seems to depend, like, how your TV was set up and what you were using to connect your NES to the TV, which is why, like, I have the HDMI kit in my NES, and it lets me change the palette to different variations, so these colors are probably correct for someone. They don't feel right to me, but I acknowledge that, you know, there's probably a very good reason for that. Music sounds good, I will say that. I want that holy water, but I guess I can't have it. Oh, let's see here. Ken says, I agree. Give us a chance to remap the buttons. Right. Guffey says, I hope they add a patch to fix the problems. Well, apparently they're patching in the Japanese versions of the game, of some of the games. They haven't said which ones specifically. Let's see here. Jason Migru says, what a maneuver. Onomatopoeification says, so adventure is the odd one out here. I would say so. I would say adventure is the one that's not good. Jason Migru says, you didn't jump over the 1-1 entry. Yeah, I didn't do the bat skip. MC Banjo Mike, who said he wasn't going to be around, I'd be on Discord if I thought MC Banjo Mike was around. But he says, hey Joe, played one of the good games in this collection. Well, Mike, if you'd been here from the beginning, I said I'm going to play them all. Or most of them. Stephen Hopkins says apparently they're going to add the Japanese versions, yeah. So hopefully they also add control remapping. No kidding. I mean, what they're clearly going for is like A, B, but the buttons are slanted on most controllers now, like a Super NES controller, not level like they were on an NES controller, so A, B just doesn't, it feels weird to me, and I think to most people, which is why I'm using A and X. Which again, just let me remap the buttons. Like, I don't know why that's a thing. Just let me remap the buttons. It would have been really interesting if they had put the Versus arcade system. Although I guess Hamster's releasing those, so I guess I'm hoping that Hamster does the Versus arcade version at some point, because they've been doing Konami releases and they've been doing Nintendo Versus arcade releases, like Versus the arcade version of the Versus Excite Bike, and Versus Super Mario Brothers, and I guess we're eventually going to get Versus Balloon Fight, although that still hasn't showed up, but that stuff is happening, so I'm hoping that at some point we get Versus Castlevania, because if you remember last Halloween time, I played some Versus Castlevania on my EverDrive, and it doesn't work quite right. Ugh. Those big money prizes, you know, I grabbed those, but I wasn't fast enough. Yeah, so, I don't know. I don't know why they didn't really advertise that M2 is doing these ahead of time. And I'll also say that, like, this very much, you know, doesn't feel like, an M2 production that had as much time as some others, right? Like, the Sega Ages collections are these, like, extremely complete, things, similar to the Hamster thing, right? Like, I talked about this when I played the arcade collection, but, like, the individual Hamster releases of those Konami arcade games have much, much more options and stuff, and I did not want to do that. I shouldn't have done that. I lost my double multiplier. I don't think I realized that you lose the multiplier in the original Castlevania when you grab a different item. Let's see here. That was weird. Okay. There's a holy water. I'll take that all day. All day, every day. I'll take that holy water. Don't want the knife. Let's see. Mike says he's at work. Don't tell anybody watching. Mel Gaming says, man, I want to grab this, but I'll have to wait a bit. Jason McGrew says, I just got here. What system is this being played on? This is on the Nintendo Switch, but it's also available on the PS4, Xbox One, and Steam, I think. But the only reason that I would pay for a collection of games that I already own, which I literally own every single game in this collection on original hardware, would be to have it portably. So that's why I got the Switch version. But it's available on everything. But this is the Switch version. Johnny Bond says, is that supposed to sound like that? The energy points count? That doesn't sound right to me. I agree with that. Ken says, get the knife. That joke, that reference, went through when I played a bunch of Ghouls and Ghosts games in October. I'm not good at Castlevania anymore, apparently. And that joke, somebody said that in literally every stream that I did of a Ghouls and Ghosts game. literally everybody, or somebody I should say, said, get the knife. You know, there's some sound effect here that's not sounding quite right to me, but mostly the audio sounds good, I think. And again, M2 does really just stellar work. I know that if you're like a speedrunner, there's a way to take a hit from a Medusa head and like hop up to the second level before you normally would, but playing casually today, not speedrunning. If I was going to speedrun a game, it sure would not be this one. Boy, the stopwatch and the knife are kind of the two most useless sub-weapons in this game, so... Actually, the stopwatch is useful at very particular intervals, but this is not one of them. That wasn't worth maybe getting a heart for. Let's see. The stopwatch also, like, it only works on the first boss, and it doesn't work on any of the bosses after that, so that also really limits its usefulness. There we go. That's what I want. And then I get squished by the thing. I used to be good at this game, I promise. In fact, I think I streamed it in October and I got, like, to the second slot. I think I got to the Grim Reaper fight before dying. There we go. Let's see. Jason McGrew says, Joe, any thoughts on AEW on TNT? Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's good for wrestling. I think it's good for... the competition is good. It'll be good for WWE in the long run, honestly, because I think it will... If there's legitimate competition, like, it will inspire them a little bit, you know. Johnny Bond says the stopwatch is useful to stop an imminent Medusa head collision. Yeah, I mean, that's a very specific application of the stopwatch. We'll play until I lose all my lives, which is going to be the next one unless I get a 1-up here. But, you know, I'm going to move on to the next game. Did not want to do that. That's the problem. You get used to whipping things and then, like, you get a drop that you really didn't want. I appreciate that the later games eventually made the candles look different when there was a weapon inside, and some then would even let you drop your currently equipped weapon, and then you would just get a new weapon. Looks like you only get one to save, like, in the, in the arcade collection, you only get one save slot per game, and that seems to be the way it's going here. Stephen Hopkins says, if they did a second collection, which games would you like to see in it? Probably, the Game Boy Color one, Castlevania Legacy, I think it's called. The 3 Game Boy Advance games. I don't think that there would be a good way for them to do the DS games at this time, so probably not those, just because it doesn't seem feasible in a way that wouldn't require a whole bunch of work. So, Game Boy Color, the 3 Game Boy Advance games, you know, probably both Rondo of Blood and Super Nintendo's Castlevania Dracula X, Symphony of the Night, and Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth would probably be the 8 games I would want to see if they did another one of these. We'll skip over Simon's Quest for now. In fact, first things first, let's just take a look at all the systems and see how the emulation and the sound is on all the different systems here. Okay, so yeah, that's definitely original and Pixel Perfect are definitely switched here, unless you're in the scan line options, which I hate. I hate fake scan lines, as I'm sure you all know. So this is playing at 1080. Which, you know, some collections are max out at 720 or whatever. There's one that I was just trying to remember what it was. A collection that maxed out at 720. My TV says this is playing at 1080, so... I feel like I've seen people say they're not using interpolation on this, but I haven't noticed any pixel shimmer yet, although on the first game it might have been harder to notice. So, oh. Jason Bigger says, don't you think Nintendo is missing the boat by not putting out an N64 Classic? I mean, do we know that they're not putting out an N64 Classic? At this point, that could just be around the corner. I mean, we know that there are machines, you know, small, affordable computers that are powerful enough to run PlayStation games, so there probably are to run N64 games. It might just be that they haven't done it yet. But I don't know. The N64 didn't sell nearly as well as the NES or Super NES. I honestly think the next thing that they're going to do, or certainly the next thing I would do if I was Nintendo, would be a Game Boy Classic. I would do that before an N64, because that thing sold a gazillion units. It's still like the 3rd or 4th best-selling game system of all time. 2nd best-selling portable game system of all time after the DS. Like, that's the way I would go. Mellow Gaming says, I like the PS2 3D Castlevanias. They weren't that amazing, but they were more Castlevania-like than those last two. I mean, that's... Yeah, they were more Castlevania-like than the Lords of Shadow games, but they still... I mean, whatever. They're fine, I guess. I don't love them. Stephen Hopkins says Rebirth would be good since WiiWare is pretty much gone now. I mean, there's no pretty much. It's gone. If you don't have if there's a WiiWare game and you don't have it, the only way you're going to get it is by piracy now, so... Onomatopoeification says, I like how the music in this one is sometimes jazzy. It does. There's a jazzy vibe here. So now I can remap the buttons here in the game. If the game doesn't have the option. Then I don't have the option. Just weird. It's weird to me. So this is the game that feels like, at least for a while, it felt like this was the favored Castlevania, right? Like, people really, really had a soft spot for this one. And I like this game, but I do think it's kind of weird how much people love it, like, sort of to the exclusion of other Castlevania games. I don't remember if there's anything actually over here if I go all the way back. There's not. This is one of those, hey, look, we can switch around the foreground and the background things, early, Super NES trick. Like, that was pretty impressive. In 1991, you saw that and you were like, whoa, dude, look at him behind this fence. Very similar to Super Mario World, the stages where where Mario can, like, knock on the fence and spin around in some of the castles and stuff. The same idea. The real innovation in this game was mapping the sub-weapon to a different button. That's the true hero is the person who decided that was the thing they should do and let you whip in multiple directions. Which I guess that's part of why people, like, really love this one, right? Is because there's versatility in the controls that really wasn't there before and kind of wasn't there after, at least for a while. But for my part, I guess I just don't... I think that's all cool, but I think that the level design is maybe not quite as cool as some of the other Castlevania games, and I don't know. I feel like I'm starting to sound like I'm slagging this game off, when in fact I quite like this game. I just think it's weird that people like it more than Bloodlines or Rondo of Blood. Castlevania games need to have the word blood in the title, I guess, is really what I'm saying here. Nope. This is a gorgeous game, though, especially for such an early game. Like, this is one of those games that, like, I remember the first time I played this game and I was like, whoa, this is ridiculous, like, how good this looks. And, that's equal parts. It was 1991 and I was 8 years old. So, you know, sort of like, this looks like an arcade game, man, like... You know, even when compared to Genesis games looked great and had been around for a couple of years, but this was like, this felt like it was on another level, man. Especially that weird tunnel, which I probably won't get to because, you know, again, I'm trying to kind of show off a little bit of all of these. Oh, see, now I feel like I'm seeing a little bit of pixel shimmer on some of this stuff. Which is fine, it's not the worst thing in the world. It depends on the game. Sometimes it's really noticeable, and sometimes it's not. And I really feel like it's, like, if I'm looking for it, I kind of see it, but... let's see here. Jason McGur's stream just got really laggy. No Gaming says game, video, and audio is going crazy, but Joe is fine. Huh. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm getting that too. That's really weird. Let me check on OBS. Wait a second. That's really weird, because OBS is not saying that there's any problems or that I'm dropping frames. I'm sort of watching the stream. There's a delay for me, so now I had to... Whoa. Okay, I'm going to unplug the capture card and plug it back in. Okay, one moment, please. A bunch of lag jokes in the thing, which is totally justified. Okay, I guess we're waiting for my capture card to finish resetting. Which makes me feel like it was the capture card. This is great television, right? Sorry about this. No, that hasn't happened to me ever. For this, like, for just the game to kind of weird out like that. Ugh. Alright. Okay, I think we're back in business. I have no idea what happened there. Johnny Buns says RIP capture card. Didn't look like it. Wonder if the refresh rate on the game changed and caused the Elgato to freak out. That can happen, but I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not going to sweat it because it's working now. Oh, you lose your multiplier when you change weapons in this game, too. I don't think I realized that. How did I never remember that? I guess because I don't use sub-weapons all that often is the answer. I use the whip a lot in these games. Probably should have just hung onto the cross then. Oh, I forgot about the stupid horse heads too. You'd think for a game that I just played like a couple months ago, I would remember more of this stuff, but... This game is also really generous with hearts. Like, I have 79 hearts. Not getting that. Look at those backgrounds. Look at that parallax. Look at how Dracula just keeps skeletal horses in the pasture out there. I guess you don't have to feed him anything. It's such a weird touch. Like, oof. Apparently I'm gonna run out of time. Okay. Let's see. Lucas Gamer PY says, I've recently beaten this again in the Super NES Classic, and yeah, this game loves to shower you with hearts, but man, what, time out already? Damn. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I guess I was messing around with the capture card and stuff, but the game was paused for most of that, so like, that feels like if you don't die, they don't give you a ton of time to make your way through here, do they? Again, sound is good. I mean, we're talking about M2. They really don't mess up stuff like that. There was some weird stuff with some of the sounds in the NES game, but I don't know. Without a side-by-side comparison, it's kind of hard to say for sure what's going on there. This sounds great. You and your stupid skull face. I kind of like this game's take on the original game, because this is it's called Super Castlevania 4, but in Japan it was just called Akumajo Dracula, just like the original game. And I like this game's take on the original story more of the idea of you're outside the castle, you have to go through the stables, now you have to go through the forest, that, you know, or the, I guess this is really more of a grotto because it's within the castle's walls, you know, whatever. That idea, I think, is a little cooler than just like, oh, you're in the castle and every level is a castle. It's just a little more interesting. I mean, it varies the stages more, right? Because, yeah, in the original Castlevania, you eventually do go into the catacombs and everything, but mostly the levels are castle. Like, you know, cement bricks and crumbling staircases and all that stuff. Look at all these hearts. Back to a good sub-weapon. So I don't know if Konami is trying to... It's hard to tell, based on these collections, the two that are out so far, if this is a you know, a redemption arc for them, or if it is just trying to make a quick buck, because these compilations are not terrible, but they're not as detailed, you know, as they, or as sort of open to a variety of options and stuff as they could be. So it's really hard to tell, right? If it's like, you know, mea culpa for all the terrible things we've been doing for the last, like, I don't even know how many years at this point, right? Like, it's been a minute since Konami's done anything I care about that isn't Metal Gear, and at this point, it's even been a couple years since they've done anything I care about, full stop, that isn't re-releasing games they made 20 years ago or more. So, it's really hard to tell, right? Like, is this, we wanna show that we can still make games, or we want to gauge interest in our old games and maybe make some new games that are like our old games. Maybe it's just as simple as, like, that bloodstained, like, faux NES game that came out last summer sold really well. Maybe we should be doing more with some of this stuff. Because, I mean, we all know that was basically a Castlevania game, right? And it was good. It was one of my top games last year. I played through it like 6 times or whatever. I did an episode of Obscure Old Games. Or I should say Roger did an episode of Obscure Old Games about it. Maybe Konami just sort of took notice. Who knows? I don't know. It's hard to say. Adios, Medusa. Johnny Bond says the SNK collection set a standard that all other collections should follow. I mean, yeah, that's probably true. No, sorry, that's definitely true, but I feel like a lot of game publishers just don't. I mean, Frank Cifaldi said that he pitched a Konami collection to Konami, and they flat, like, told him no. So So I don't know. Every time since their sort of rebirth, I have really just constantly waited to see what is the next thing that Digital Eclipse is gonna do, because they've just done so much good stuff. The Street Fighter collection is aces, and the Disney Afternoon collection, the first Mega Man Legacy collection, like all that stuff was... Oh, slowdown even seems accurate here. So, you know, with Digital Eclipse and with M2, I'm fairly on board for like whatever they're doing, and I'm really excited for the documentary that Corey and Try over at My Life in Gaming did on M2 that's coming out, I think, this weekend on YouTube. And I'm actually gonna... Here's a shameless plug. Corey and I will both be at Cincy Classic this weekend in Cincinnati, Ohio. So if you're in the Cincinnati area, you should come hang out on Saturday. Corey is doing a panel about Night Trap and the remake of the remastering of Night Trap, and I am doing a panel with Eric from Game vs. Game about portable ports, because it's the Game Boy's 30th anniversary, so that seemed like a good thing to talk about. So we're gonna. So come check that out. Try will not be there. So Corey lives in the Cincinnati area, and Try lives in North Carolina, I want to say. So only Corey's going to be there, but, you know, better than nothing, right? And I'll be there. Eric Ryder will be there from Game vs. Game, and Daniel Pacina, who played Johnny Cage in the original and second Mortal Kombat games, will be there. So if you're in the Cincinnati area, come hang out. It'll be a good time. Let's see here. Lava Lords Universe 2 says, I never played this. The last one I played was Simon's Quest. Oh man, you have missed out on like literally all of the best Castlevania games you missed out on. I would heartily... No! Ugh. See, that was bogus, because there was no way for me to avoid getting that axe. Like, it was directly over... For me to whip that at all, like... Okay, so now I've got the cross back, but I have to get my triple shot back, and now I have to earn my triple shot back. Blah. Lucas Gamer PY says, Bloodstained was amazing. I've beaten 8 times, boss rush and all that. Let's hope Konami does the right thing like Capcom and SNK recently. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Mighty Number 9 was the boondoggle that made Capcom realize that there was an appetite for an actual good Mega Man game, and so they made Mega Man 11. I don't know... Like, it doesn't seem to me so far, as someone who backed the Kickstarter, so full disclosure, I backed the Kickstarter, and I played all the demos that have been released to me. You know, and, you know, I don't think that Bloodstained, the proper Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, is going to be a boondoggle on the level of Mighty Number 9. A Kickstarter that I also backed, and I played the game for all of about 10 minutes before I was just like, yep, this did not turn out the way that I hoped it would. Oh well. In fact, I'm almost positive that I played the Inti Creates, the Azure Striker... It's not Azure Striker Gunvolt, it's like Mighty Gunvolt or something. Mighty Gunvolt Hero or whatever. That thing that I got for my DS for free for backing the Kickstarter. I played more of that than I did of the actual Mighty Number 9. So, but, you know, I had that sense playing the demo, the backer demo that came out for Mighty Number 9. Like, I had the vibe, like, this ain't gonna be good. And I don't think I can actually kill those things. You know, and I have not gotten that vibe at all with the... I mean, even when people were like, the demo from last summer, oh, this is so ugly, blah, blah, blah. Not that I didn't agree that it was ugly, because I did kind of think that, but I also don't care. Like, if it plays well, it doesn't really matter to me. But then they made it look better, and that's all good. Like, I'm all good on that. So I don't know that it's going to work out quite the same way, because I think that... you know, EIGHT and Art Play and Inti Creates and everything, like, their Bloodstained is going to be better than Mighty Number 9 was. And I just don't... I'm like, who knows what's going to happen with Death Stranding? I don't even really fully get what Death Stranding is yet. Like, I've watched all the trailers and all the press stuff and all the things, and I still don't know what Death Stranding is. So, like, I think it's an action game. That's about all I'm willing to commit to. So, you know, again, this is a situation where I just don't think, I don't know, and I guess Konami makes a lot of money from slot machines and all that, you know, all that type of noise, so who knows, you know, I don't know what they're gonna do, but it would be nice to see them do more with their existing IP and you know, see more of their classic games come out if these collections do well. You know, but I guess that's all going to be a big old we'll see. Now, is this going to be a weapon that I don't actually want? Like, I almost don't want to even whip this candle because... yeah, it's going to be a weapon that I don't want. Okay. I'm letting the chat get away from me. Jason McGrew says I can never get past this stage. It's pretty early in the game, but yeah, I mean, this game is not easy. Lucas Gamer says this stage's music gives me Chrono Trigger vibes. I feel that. Mellow Gaming says I need to get on... I need to get on with the thing Eric said he'll appear in. Don't want to take away from his current project, though. B33FY2015 says Super Castlevania, my favorite of all time. That's legit. So you're not the only one who feels that way about this game. Mellow Gaming says, I got a few weeks of Reddit hating me because I said Mighty Number 9 was mediocre after playing the demo on YouTube. I mean, who cares if Reddit hates you? I want Reddit to hate me. Jason McGrew says 3-2 gives me PTSD. Lucas Gamer says Death Stranding is an acid trip. Mellow Gaming says would love a Konami collection of the 3 Rocket Knight games, Rocket Knight Adventures and the 2 Sparksters. Yeah, that would be dope. I would feel like I would want more, though. I don't want them to just release it. Well, the new one would be cool, just even though I don't think it's that great, it would just be cool to have the complete lineup of all 4 Rocket Knight games. Marcos Corona says, have you beaten this before? I have beaten Super Castlevania 4 before, yes. Lucas Gamer says, would have loved to see Rebirth instead of the original. You are not alone. I kind of mentioned that at the beginning, but the original Castlevania adventure is not very good. And into the drink I go. Ah! Will I never learn? Yeah, the answer is no. No, I'll never learn. I think if you go back, and I don't know if it's archived or not, because that was back when we streamed a lot more on Twitch, but I think if you look hard enough, you might be able to find footage of me literally falling asleep playing this game during like our second Extra Life marathon. The first one where Eric came out to DC. Like, I love the little details, like when Simon swings and his feet drag through the water, like there's a little splash effect. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, that was gonna be a problem. Whoops. Let's see here. Jason Mugru says, oh, the music. Music is on point. Onomatopoeification says, this level's my favorite track. Sounds like, Jason Mugru says, sounds like a jazz record my parents would play when they had dinner parties in the 80s. Lucas Gamer says, here lies Joe, he never learned about the old sub-weapon system. Right? Jason Mugru says, the Extra Life Marathon where you and Eric shaved your head like the Road Warriors was my favorite. That was the third one, I believe. That was Extra Life number 3. Yeah, I always have fun with Extra Life. It's one of my favorite things. Even when we're not all together in the same place. But those are my favorites. The one where or I should say the couple where Mike has been able to come up and everything. Those are the ones I like most. Mike, who was watching, I don't know if he still is. He might have left work by this point. It's 6 o'clock his time. Really? See, that's why the game gives you an axe right there, because... This seems like a weird... If you're Dracula and you're placing skeletal dragon heads... Oh, see, that's why, because it drops a whole bunch of stuff on you. Some birds. They got time for you. This song really, like the flute in this song really has like some free jazz vibes going on here. Come on. There you are. Oof. See, if I had just a little more sub-weapon ammo, that would have been a slightly easier fight. Let's see. Melogaming says Ron Burgundy performed flute for this stage, I hear. Jason McGrew says, I'm telling you, this stage is brutal. I mean, kind of all the stages in this game are brutal. There we go. That's gonna help. All them hearts. That's gonna help. Could deal with a little more health, but I think I'm in good shape. See if we can show Jason a stage he hasn't seen before. Down. Boom. Boom. Well, Gaming says I think this stage is about as far as I ever got. A lot of people stymied by stage 3 in Super Castlevania. That's what I'm finding out. That's the sticking point, apparently. Mess with me, wall monster. I've had enough of you. Look at that skull. Look at how, I mean, that's so great. The skull that follows you, looks at you as you move around. Thought I told you to get out of here, wall monster. I'm sticking with the single continue thing, but that might change depending on how many of these games I actually want to get to. Because this one, like I've been playing this game before. And there it is. Gamer says brutal stage is stage 8, or the 2 last ones, they're tough. And then says I adore this theme. Yeah, I mean, some of those later stages can be rough. Alright, let's see what a Game Boy game looks like. So Castlevania Adventure is not a good game. But let's see how you can watch the replay. I don't know if you can join in. Let's find out. Oh, I have to save. Oh, so it's okay. It's not like the SNK collection where there is a replay already in there. I have to save my own replay, and then I can watch the replay. Okay, so on this one... Now see, this looks correct. Except here's the weird thing about this. The pixel perfect would be correct because the Game Boy actually used square pixels. This would be like if you wanted to impersonate playing it on a Super Game Boy. You would go with original, but that's not right. Pixel perfect, which is square pixels, is right for the Game Boy. And then they put a dot matrix filter in here too, which there's a Mr. filter that does this, which I think is really cool. Let's check that out. We're gonna check that out. Got our frame on there, and then we'll check out the color filters and see what those do later. But let's check out the dot matrix and see how this looks. The only good thing about this game is the music. But that music. Not as much blur as I was really expecting. Also, there's like some kind of weird visual glitches going on, but that might be... So I had this game as a kid. I did own this game. And I actually thought it was cool just because it was Castlevania and it was portable, and I got my Game Boy in 1989, and so you know, why wouldn't I? It seems really slow. I mean, it is really slow, but you have to realize that the reason it's so slow is because if you never played an original Game Boy, they were so blurry, the screen was so blurry that you had to make the game slow. Otherwise it would smear all over the screen, and it wasn't really until the Game Boy Pocket, which had a little better screen, and then the Game Boy Color, which had a much better screen, and then eventually, you know, we get to things like the GBA SP, and then it's not a concern by that point. But I mean, this was, you know, almost a decade and a half before the GBA SP. So, you know, we're really talking about the limitations of a system. And before the Super Game Boy, you kind of get away with that stuff after the Super Game Boy to a certain extent, just because, you know, people would play games on the SP. On the Super Game Boy, and then like, it's not that big of a deal because they're playing on but excuse me for just 1 second. That was weird. I thought I heard something downstairs, and I just wanted to make sure my dog, the one dog that's not sitting here with me, the other dog, wasn't getting into something he shouldn't be getting into. So, sorry about that. I'm the only one home, so it's just, you know. you hear a weird sound and you're like, I'm the only one here, except for the dogs, so does this mean the dog's doing something dumb? But no, I was either just hearing things or it's the air conditioner. Whatever. Anyways. So, hey, one up. This game is weird because it has like a really easy first stage for the most part, and then there's going to be a really annoying platforming section coming up, and then the game gets impossible pretty quickly after that. But this square pixels with the dot matrix filter, like, this is pretty good. Although again, I feel like it's causing some weird graphical issues with the energy bar and stuff, but those might have been in the original game. The version of this game that there's some screen tearing too, I guess. The version of this game I have is actually on the Konami GB collection for the Game Boy Color, which speeds it up a little bit and is in color. So, I haven't played the original in a long time. Let's check out the color filter and see what that looks like. Alright, well, anyways, the Game Boy emulation seems mostly okay. There's, like I said, it seems like there's screen tearing and some weird flickering on the HUD, but I cannot say for certain that that wasn't there originally. I could fire it up on the Game Boy and double check, but let's see here. Lucas Gamer says Castlevania: The Adventure review in one sentence. It's stiff and rough. Yeah, I'd say so. Says looks like they got the Super Game Boy colors. Yeah, I think that's what this is the default Super Game Boy palette. Mellow Gaming says I think this was my first Castlevania. Nowhere to go but up. Jason McGrew says this game looks slow. It is slow. Lucas Gamer says the music is amazing and it is slow. And in this game, you lose your best upgrade when you get hit. I don't remember it that well, but I only played it for like 30 minutes and got bored. Yeah, so the little fireball thing that I had, I mean, I got knocked into a pit before I really lost it, but if you get the fireball thing, then, you know, you take a hit, you lose it, which is annoying. Anyways, I don't know why I'm still playing this. This game isn't very good. So. Just to see if it's the emulation or that game, let's check out Belmont's Revenge. Put the dot matrix on because I was kind of digging that. I have to put the frame on for every individual game, which is sort of annoying. Spooky. Yeah, so this game, this one, there are 4 different castles. You choose one, but there's no like Mega Man style upgrades, so... Crystal Castle. Simon Belmont's going to fight Bentley Bear. You know, again, really great soundtrack. This one, I would say, is kind of the sleeper hit of this collection. Like, Bloodlines, you know, that's one that a lot of people haven't, you know, maybe haven't played, but they know it, right? Even if they haven't played it, like, they know that game. This game, I feel like a lot of people slept on because people are sometimes, like, dismissive of Castlevania, or portable games, no matter what series they're from. Even if they're from a series they adore, like, you know, some folks are just like, nope, it can't be good because it's a portable incarnation. And so I think a lot of people slept on this. You know, even though, like, Stop Skeletons from Fighting has talked about how great this port is. I've talked about how great this port is. Or port, it's not a port, it's just a game unto itself. But, you know, I think people have largely slept on this one. So this is sort of the gem of the collection. This is the one where it's like, oh, this is the game that you may not have played that you should play, because it's actually very good. And you know, you might not have realized just how good. So there you go. This guy is now the only guy who can take your power-ups away, and he just did that. So, Level Gaming says Crystal Castles, love that game. Camaristico says, yo Joe, yo Camaristico. Konami sure did love their rolling eyeballs in this era, didn't they? Oh, that's right. If you hold jump, you can slide down the ropes quickly. So, I'm not getting any of the weird screen tearing or HUD glitches here, so I feel like that's strictly an issue with the first game. The first Game Boy game, for whatever reason. So, Detective Manny Pardo says, advice for anyone who hasn't played this one, ignore the holy water. Basically useless compared to the axe, right? So there's only 2 sub-weapons in this game, and they're different in the US version than they are in the Japanese and European version. The cross, there is no holy water in the Japanese and European version. Oh dear. The cross takes the place of the holy water, if I'm remembering correctly, which is much more useful, and is also why I think it would be really good for this game to add the region variances. It would also be really cool if they added the Game Boy Color versions of this and the first one. So anyways, that's enough Game Boy for now. But yeah, the color ones are dope. Let's see here. So you checked out NES, Super NES, Game Boy. Let's check out the Genesis. Also, I'm really concerned about how they map the buttons for this, 'cause it's a 3-button Genesis game. And now we're back to the original and Pixel Perfect are switched. It's so weird. And I have to put the frame on for every game. So first things first, this sounds good, right? It sounds correct, which, just off the bat, you know, yeah, that sounds correct. Which again, M2, they're doing a whole, like, Genesis, mini Genesis for Sega, and they've done their experience with the Genesis. Like this, if there's one game in this collection that I expect to be perfect, it's this one. Because M2 has so much experience with Genesis games. So that, you know, that's sort of what I expect. It seems to be what I'm getting. I adore Genesis, and in this case, I actually believe that I can remap the buttons, so I guess it doesn't matter. Give myself... Well, actually, we'll do 3, because I'm doing this by continue, so... Attack, jump, item, but I don't know what order those buttons are in, so let's look at the controls. This isn't really... okay. Jump, movement... Use items is the A button. Y button swings the weapon. B button jumps. So actually they map the controls pretty decently here. Right, so we have attack, jump, item. So they're A, B, C. Which makes sense. I think there's a 1P start as if there would be another option. Lucas Gamer says, oh yeah, Bloodlines. Mellow Gaming says, love how this game sounds. I had this years ago and traded in like an idiot when I got a PS1. We all did stuff like that. I like playing as Eric just because it's different than what you get in most Castlevanias, although I like playing as John too. Yeah, we all have stories like that, man. I had a copy of Snatcher. I mean, I have a copy of Snatcher again, but I had an original copy of Snatcher. And I paid more to get a copy of Snatcher back, although now I would pay like even more to get it back. So, you know, we've all done that because we didn't know. We didn't know that these games would be worth anything, that there would be a collector's scene, that there would be... I mean, we didn't know that. You don't know what you don't know, so... The thing that just gets me is that so many of these games are so expensive now. Like, my copy of I have a complete copy of Bloodlines. It's got the poster and everything. I think I paid $15 for it. Case, manual, poster, not a Majesco copy, so the manual's in color. And like, you know, I mean, it was years ago, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't, didn't feel like another era, I guess, basically, when I got my copy of Bloodlines for $15. So I got a copy of this is the one that kind of always comes up. I got a copy of Splatterhouse 2 on the Genesis Complete for $5 like 7 years ago. And like, now, good luck getting one under 100. And it's just like, I don't get it. Don't get it. So here is a test. This is going to be a test. Is the stairs glitch in this version? So if you cut over here, and then you go back down the stairs, there's a graphical glitch that happens to the stairs on the other side. And it happens on the Mister. If you play this on Mister, it's accurate enough that it does that. That it correctly glitches out. Yeah, it's kind of there. That's not quite the right... That's not the right glitch, though, I don't think, so... I'd have to double check now, because that was kind of glitched, and I don't know if that's because part of the image is cut off, or because... Yeah, whatever. Yeah, see, it's not there if you just go down the steps, but if you... Anyways, it was at least partially intact, so it's pretty accurate. Again, M2 and the Genesis, sort of unimpeachable. Detective Manny Pardo says this was my first Castlevania. Might be why I feel like it's massively underappreciated. Yeah, man, that's legit. It wasn't my first Castlevania. I think my first Castlevania was actually the first Castlevania, although I might have played Simon's Quest before I played the original Castlevania. But whatever the case, like, yeah, man, this game is massively unappreciated. It's not really what I wanted, but it's fine, I guess. Yeah, I tend to agree. I tend to think that this is a pretty underrated Castlevania game. I also feel like I'm kind of the only one who has like a sort of normal feeling about the Genesis. Like, I like the Genesis a lot. I think that the Super Nintendo did some things better than the Genesis, and the Genesis did some things better than the Super Nintendo, and I feel like you're either a Genesis hater or like a Super Genesis fan where you're like kind of still relitigating the console wars of the 90s, and there's not a lot of in between. You know, which is fine, I guess. I love the Genesis. I love a lot of things about the Genesis, and I find it bizarre that there are still people who are like, oh man, too bad the Genesis isn't as good as the Super Nintendo, and it's kind of like, well, I mean, we're pretty far past all of that at this point, so that's probably not a conversation that's really worth having. So yeah, occasionally you will get a pickup that lights your weapon on fire and gives you access to a sub-weapon that does a lot of damage and is pretty OP. but it costs a lot to use. And if you take a hit, you lose it. But man, it is so dope when you have it. And it can be a boss killer, but it costs 8 crystals, because they're not hearts in this game. They're crystals. It costs 8 crystals to use. Get one up. Gotta get the one up on the crumbling dragon bridge. It's a must. So you'll recall that I mentioned earlier some games have different looking candles, and you'll see there I just stabbed one that is a single candle. And the single candle, as opposed to the double candle, that's always the one with a weapon in it. So if you see the single candle, you know, and like if you're like, oh, I don't really want a different sub-weapon than the one I have right now, boom. So you don't freeze like you do in Super Castlevania, so you can't get Eric doing like his cool pole vault and then freeze it when he catches the orb. Mellow Gaming says, I feel like recently more people are appreciating Konami's Mega Drive stuff, seen Bloodlines New Generation getting talked about a lot more recently. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong about that. I think that people have, especially, there's a scarcity thing, right? Like, they've never re-released, like, this is the first time Bloodlines has been re-released on a system that wasn't the Genesis, like, legitimately ever. So, let's grab a boomerang, switch it up a little bit. Let's get killed by a Minotaur immediately. You know, so yeah, and Contra Hardcore is going to be on the Contra Collection, which is coming next month, and, I mean, about time, right? Like, Contra Hardcore is one of the best Contras, and it's sort of a crime that it... Oh, I forgot about this. Yeah, this is the thing you can do. You switch directions. Also, look at this graphical effect, like the reflection in the water, like, it's just such a cool thing. I was gonna stick with the boomerang, but I got the holy water. It's fine. I like the sunset and the reflection, all that stuff. Like, this is just a gorgeous looking game. Alright, dude, if you're just gonna back off, you can just drown. That's cool. Detective Manny Pardo says the Grease track is insanely good. Yeah, the music for this stage is... I don't know if I'd say it is, like, definitely my favorite track in the game, but it is absolutely one of them. See, the sub-weapon ammo economy is not quite the same as it is in Super Castlevania 4, so I'm like... And I don't think you get, I don't think you get the double and triple shot in this game, if I remember correctly. I've played a fair amount of this game, and I don't think that that's a thing. So, I don't need to be using my sub-weapons as much as I am, but I just keep doing it because I was just playing that other game that gave me a gazillion sub-weapon ammo. Oof. This guy's tough, because some of his attacks are easily avoided and some are less, so... I'm gonna have to fight the water mage guy again. And this dude, all he does is sit there and pour water down, but he will drown you if you don't kill him fast enough. He will just drown in the water and die. Right, okay, that's right. He's the easy one. There's another one with an axe you fight. Yeah, there we go. And you can't just crouch in front of him like that because the axe handle will hit you, I think. Yeah, so what you want to do is... There you go. He gets the axe stuck and then... That was not a good fight. But whatever, it got me to a checkpoint, so it's all good. Yeah, I feel like putting up your bare arms to block a spear is like maybe not the best decision that you could make. The amazing Scarlet Spider says, hello, comrades. Ket Burnell says, Bloodlines, good luck on the last stage, LMAO. I have beaten this game before. I don't think I'm going to get to the final stage in this play, because I have been sticking pretty rigorously to the, you know, one credit and then move on to the next game, so... I think this is the only Castlevania game where the boomerang is actually a boomerang and not a cross. Oh, you know, I was just going to remark on how it's so rare that I do a stream where you don't hear a fire truck, and then there goes the fire truck. Smash that crystal in that golem's face. Detective Manny Pardo says, interested in finding where the English version of Kid Dracula came from, as this is the first official English release. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna fire it up after this game. That's gonna be the next one. And I'm gonna say that I'm gonna guess that M2 just translated it or had someone translate it. That it's not gonna be the same as the ROM hacked version that's been around for however many years at this point. The weird thing about Kid Dracula is it doesn't really need, like, you don't need to be able to play it in English, except for one of the bosses who, there's like a, you have to fight the Statue of Liberty, but you're not actually fighting the Statue of Liberty. You are answering questions, like trivia questions about America, basically. And in order to get through that, you know, semi-reasonably, you know, your best bet is going to be able to read the questions. Although you can also just, the answers are static, so you can actually just look at my fake healer. It'll tell you, like, oh, it's A, B, you know, whatever. So. I think this is probably going to be the last stage we're going to see on this day. Yep, there we go. That was my last life. So speaking of Kid Dracula, let's check it out. Detective Manny Pardo says, would be very impressed if it's new. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that you're wrong, but I think that that's probably the case, because honestly, there's not a ton of text in it. And I think that making an arrangement with a ROM hacker, like, maybe just wasn't the way they wanted to go, so. Well, let's find out. Let's check it out. Oops. Original and Pixel Perfect are swapped again. I don't know what is the deal with that. So that is a different title screen than I believe the existing ROM hack version has. Because I think it says something like, "Hi, I'm Kid Dracula." Because the full title is Akumajo Special, which is Castlevania special, or Demon Castle special, Boku wa Dracula-kun, which is like sort of directly translated is I am Dracula, but like younger. It's kind of hard to explain because the way honorifics work in Japanese is kind of dumb. But point is, so people have translated it as I'm Kid Dracula. So I believe the existing ROM hack, that's what the title screen says. It says I'm Kid Dracula, or hello, I'm Kid Dracula, or something like that. That title screen, I believe, is different, which makes me think this is in fact a new localization. But I haven't looked at that version in a minute. I'd have to pull it up on a flashcard. Take a look. So this is interesting also in that you shoot. Right from the beginning, you can shoot. And you can do a charge shot like Mega Man, and then later you get... And if you look at his facial expression at the bottom as you charge... and so this game is actually... It's more like Mega Man than Castlevania. Even the way, if you look at the way he takes a hit, and the way he bounces back like that, he looks like Mega Man. So this game is a lot more Mega Man than, and you get, you can't choose the order of the stages, but you do get, new weapons or new powers after each stage. So that's interesting that there's Jiangqi in the or Chinese hopping ghosts or Chinese hopping vampires, depending on how you want to refer to them. Because I actually just read a thing, and if you haven't read this thing, there's a thing on Shmuplations that's basically a translation of a Twitter thread that sort of talked about the original Castlevania creator and sort of what his thoughts and how he went about making the games and that kind of stuff, which is super interesting. But one of the things that the guy who wrote the Twitter thread, who worked with the original Castlevania creator, talks about is how originally the zombies in the front hall in Castlevania were Jiangqi, but their jumping made it too hard on the player, so they changed them to zombies, so they wouldn't be jumping. So the fact that there are Jiangqi in this version to Dracula seems like it's kind of a fun nod to his original desire for I like that we get the clock tower reference like just immediately in the first stage. And also this game there's a Game Boy version of this that is really more of a sequel than just like a straight port. No. Well, that sucked. Oops, I'm going this way. So the first boss in this game is a ghost. And when you beat the little ghost, a big ghost comes. So they did change one thing here. The ghost in the original Famicom version has a manji, which looks very much like a swastika on its head. And so it looks like a Klansman in the Famicom version. But I think that's one of the only, that's another localization thing, is like maybe get rid of that thing that looks like it's a Buddhist symbol, but it looks like a swastika. So let's get rid of that, which is a good move in my view. Detective Manny Pardo says, I believe you're right about it not matching the translation ROM hack, so seemingly more likely this is either a new translation or getting one that was never released. Oh yeah, that's possible. To play the bonus game. Alright, so now I can charge and I can fire, but if I hit select, I also have the homing shot. That was, I'm going to blame button placement on that, because I sort of... So again, this feels a lot more like a Mega Man game than a Castlevania game, right? So I want that heart container because that raises your max health. So yeah, I guess there's a non-zero chance that like they were thinking about releasing this back in the day and didn't, and this is a translation from the time. Oh no. It's been a minute since I've played this game. Oh boy, so we've been going for almost 2 hours now. Don't know that I was fully expecting that to happen so quickly, but that's alright. So, yeah, I mean, I've looked at most of the games here. We looked at all the different systems. False Logic says nice Gamma reference. Yeah, the flying turtles with the jets coming out of their shells. Alright. I'm just gonna do a little Dracula's Curse to round things out for a few minutes, and then we're gonna call it a stream for today. Even without the expansion chip audio, it's pretty good. So if you didn't know, you can get a bunch of extra lives, but put your name as Help Me. False Logic says, what version of Castlevania 3 is this? It is the American, it's Castlevania 3. It's the US version. Detective Manny Pardo says, Akamajo Densetsu music on the US version, not the game selection screen. Yeah, I noticed that too. Not in the game though. But, I mean, they've already said they're going to do a free patch or a free DLC that adds some of the Japanese versions. This one would have to be it. There's actually a card on this stream. If you don't know all the differences, it goes to the same name, different game episode on this game from Halloween 3 years ago? 4 years ago? That I shot on the Exorcist stairs in DC. And it runs down all of the differences between the two versions. But it's, I mean, it's music, it's item placement, it's enemy placement, it's the way you take damage. There are so many differences between this. There are graphical differences. It's just, there's a lot of stuff going on here. So having the Japanese version will be nice. Come on. I don't know if you can see. Oh yeah, you can see. My little dog jumped up on me. Yeah, the way you take damage is different. Just so many differences that if you're not familiar, check out that video again. There's a card on this stream you can click on that will take you there. But, you know, I honestly like both versions. I just... it's just the game is really... It's hard enough in the Japanese version, and they made it harder for the US version, so... you know, like, I'm good. I have beaten both versions, which is why I don't really play this version very much anymore, because I've beaten it, I've been there, seen the top of the mountain, don't really need to go back, generally speaking. And apparently there is, I don't remember if it's a code or if it's just like the second loop, like the game is harder. Like, I don't really know why I would want to play a harder version of this. Like, it's a harder version of the harder version, and I don't know why I would want that, but... but the Fleamen look different, the zombies look different, some of the statues look different. just talking about aesthetic stuff. So there's a lot of stuff going on that makes it good that they're putting the Japanese version in here, just because it's almost a different, a completely different game because there's so many differences. Let's see here. False Logic says sell extra hard. Andrew Lloyd says this collection will be on my PS4 wish list. False Logic says you can pet the dog on the stick. I can. Detective Manny Pardo says have yet to beat the US Castlevania 3 final stage. It's so much more difficult that I couldn't muster the patience to keep going. I thought most of the game in the US is fine, but the final stage is too much. It's not even the final stage itself. It's that in the final stage, if you die, you get bumped back way too far, and if you lose all your lives, you get bumped back to the beginning of the stage, which is just totally ridiculous. And the weapons you get, the weapons you get right before Dracula are changed in the US version. The weapon drops right before the final boss fight are different. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. False Logic says I've never understood that damn candle. Yeah, there's a candle early in the stage that literally you can only get it if you enter one of the codes that lets you start with a companion, because there are passwords that, I mean, that's the reason why, near as I can tell. There are codes that let you start with the companion characters. Detective Manny Pardo says the US version first loop is harder than the second loop on Japan, and I think that's a little much. And then he says that I think the second loop, the candle is intended for the second loop. Right, because if you play through the second loop, you keep your companion character, so yeah. But I think it's just points, if I remember correctly. So if you're going to get Grant, who in this version is not super duper important, you would go up the steps and go to the clock tower stage. Grant still has some advantages in this version, but if you're not going to get Grant and you don't care, then you would just go down the stairs, because you have to play 2 extra stages to get Grant, which makes a lot more sense in the Japanese version because he is borderline OP in the Japanese version. His default attack is shooting. He shoots knives, or he throws knives. That was just me not paying attention. His default is that he shoots knives, and then on top of that he can get the axe as a sub-weapon, and so he has like 2 different kinds of attacks that he can do. Timing is just terrible today. So if you were going that route, that's what you would do. But he's not as valuable in the US version. In the US version, I would say that Sypha is probably the best companion in the US version, because her Thunder Spell, if you can get it and hold on to it, is borderline OP, and is really helpful in the Grim Reaper fight, especially. But is also, if you can keep it, if you can get to Dracula with Sypha's Thunder Spell, that makes that a lot easier. But I ran out of lives on that one. The only game that I didn't play was Simon's Quest, and and it's been over 2 hours now that we've been going, so thanks everybody for coming and hanging out, and if I'm not back before Wednesday night for the normal Wednesday night stream, we'll see you all on Wednesday night. If you're in the Cincinnati area, come and hang out. Cincy Classic is on Saturday. The pre-party is tomorrow night. All the details you can get at, I think it's cincyclassic.net. Search for Cincy Classic. Or look on this channel for the video that I did talking about me going. And that's going to do it for me this afternoon. Adios.